way, you have $316,000 worth of business credit cards that don't appear on your personal credit report. That's crazy.
Yeah, we actually got into an 8-unit apartment complex, which needed a lot of work. I was able to use that funding to pay for the renovations of a couple of units, and that helped me then refinance from a hard money loan into a more fixed, lower interest loan.
What if the only thing standing between where you are now and the business you know you're capable of building was access to the right kind of funding? If you ever felt stuck, bootstrapping every move, spinning your wheels, wondering how others manage to scale so fast, then this conversation is probably for you. Because today, we're talking to someone who's been there. Steve Munoz, CEO of Strategic Consortium LLC, didn't just build a business. He built real momentum. And the turning point? Partnering with Fund&Grow to unlock the capital that changed everything. Steve, let's talk about that journey and the moment everything shifted. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Sure, it's a pleasure. Thank you, Ari.
Absolutely. So, can you start by telling us a bit about yourself and what inspired you to start on your journey of being an entrepreneur and creating Strategic Consortium LLC?
Yeah, absolutely. So it all started when I was a young boy. So basically, my father, many years ago, before I was even born, started investing in rental real estate here in Los Angeles, California in the late 60s and early 70s. And I grew up in that environment. Real estate was everywhere. I would go with him to the bank to make deposits. I would go with him to different meetings with different professionals. So I always grew up in it, and I learned a great deal from my parents. However, my own personal career was in business, but most specifically in banking and in investment services. So I got my Series 7, Series 63, California Life and Health, and I worked a pretty successful career in that arena within the banking world. But I always had that itch of wanting to get into real estate myself because of what my father did, what my parents did with it, what I learned from them. So in 2019, my wife and I decided to start investing in real estate. So we bought our first single-family home rental, living in Los Angeles. We bought it in Columbus, Georgia. And believe it or not, we've never stepped foot in the state of Georgia. So we did it all online through an online brokerage, and it was great. So that was kind of like the concept to prove it, that we can do it. We do our homework and get it done. Then we decided to invest in Phoenix, Arizona, but we wanted to buy something a little bigger. So we actually got into an 8-unit apartment complex, which needed a lot of work. And we picked it up at the end of 2019. So December of 2019, we bought the 8-unit. And as we all know what happened the next year as COVID hit. And the world got flipped upside down. So everybody was saying the world was going to end, but I wasn't really paying attention to all the noise. I was focused on the project in front of me. So I had seen videos of Fund&Grow online, on YouTube actually, as I was doing a lot of research. So when I would go back and forth on my commute to work, when I was working for Citibank at the time, I turned my car into a mobile university. So I'd listen to a little bit of everything business related, real estate related. And I was just trying to absorb as much as I could, stumbled across Fund&Grow and decided to give you all a call and kind of investigate it a little bit further. And then when I did, I was happy with what I heard. I went with it. I went forward, and Fund&Grow got me some funding for, I want to say 80,000 to 100,000, the first round or the first year that I worked with you all. And it was very key. That's kind of where everything shifted, for our business. I was able to use that funding to pay for the renovations of a couple of units within our 8-unit apartment. And that helped me then refinance from a hard money loan into a more fixed, lower interest loan. So our cash flow improved dramatically because of that. So yeah, I definitely owe a debt of gratitude to you all, and that's why I actually worked again with you all just recently here in 2024 and now into 2025.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're honored that you have chosen to work with us twice. And so it looks like you are involved in single-family homes as well as multi-family units.
Correct.
And,
long-term rentals, correct.
long-term rentals. Okay, and you're buying literally all over the United States or just in those two markets?
Just in those two markets, those are the only two that we have long-term rentals in. Um, and that's for just the portfolio for my wife and myself. And on top of that, unfortunately, my father passed away back in November, excuse me, November of 2022. And I didn't really know, but he had left me as the one in charge, I guess you could call it, the family CEO, to take over for him and run his business, which is a lot larger than what my wife are working with. So I'm managing a sizable portfolio, mostly in Southern California, of everything from single family rentals to apartment complexes to commercial, a little bit of everything. He did a great job, and he started from nothing. He's the epitome of the American dream. I have a lot of respect for my father.
That is so cool that he taught you that and he got you prepared to be the family CEO. Could you walk us through one of your more recent projects and kind of break it down for us and tell us how the funding impacted your journey?
Absolutely, yeah. So the reason why I decided also to join Fund and Grow for another year membership was about a year ago. I had a friend who lived close to me in the Santa Clarita Valley of Los Angeles, and he was interested in selling his home off market, but he was looking at different investors, and I was one of them. So unfortunately, that opportunity didn't work out, but I had signed up with Fund and Grow to see if we could use those business credit cards to do a fix and flip with his home. So fast forward about a year later, and now, my wife and I were able to we came across another opportunity for a fix and flip in Northridge, California, which is a suburb of Los Angeles. And so long story short, the funding, even though we started with Fund and Grow for this round, I want to say about a year ago, it's still helping us because we still have 0% on those business credit cards up until, in my case, I want to say January of next year. And in my wife's case, she has a sizable card under her name that doesn't expire until, I want to say, March of next year. So we're going to be using those 0% business credit cards as one of the tools in our toolbox to pay for some of the expenses of this flip in Northridge.
And tell us a little bit about your experience of using business credit cards for a flip or for rehabs and for whatever you're doing. Because a lot of viewers might be wondering, well, how is a business credit card going to help me with that type of stuff? It seems more like I need a loan or a line of credit, or I need a hard money loan. How can a business credit card really help? What did it do?
Well, most definitely, yeah. It helped us tremendously back during our first go round with Fund and Grow. So number one, I have to applaud you all for the education that you provide to your clients. You're very helpful and very available, when people have questions and they want to call in and ask, hey, how do I do this? Or who do I reach out for that? So I want to applaud you for that. But number two, what happened in our case was after speaking to my rep at Fund and Grow, they directed me to a third-party vendor that charges a 3% fee, a flat fee of 3%, to access the funds from one of our business credit cards. So that's what we did. And I went to a company by the name of Plastiq, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. I went in there, signed up, put in my business credit card. And in their portal, I put in the details of my property management company, and I submitted a payment through their portal using my business credit card to my property manager so they can do the rehab on one of the units. And that was tremendous because when it comes to an 8-unit apartment, I mean, it's valued differently than a single family home. It's more of like a commercial. So it's looked at as almost like its own little business. So when you improve a business, as you know, you multiply its value. So when I went back to the bank I shopped around different banks, they gave me a much better loan with much better terms than what I was receiving with our hard money lender who helped us initially purchase this property. So again, that wouldn't have been possible without Fund and Grow's help and without the business credit card and the training that I got from Fund and Grow.
So the key takeaway is the third-party payment services can facilitate the use of a credit card, with the property management company. So you were able to directly pay the property management company by simply setting up an account with Plastiq or with any of the payment processors. And there's a variety of different ones that we work with, Zelle Money, there's Melio Payments,
Yes.
Bill.com, Bluevine, and each one of them really specializes in different forms of payment. For example, if I need to pay payroll for a rehab, I might use a different one of the payment processors that the Fund&Grow rep would recommend. If I need to pay an escrow account, I might use a completely different one of the payment processors. But with using all these different payment processors, we found that there's not a single contractor or company or service that can't be purchased or paid for using these third-party payment services, and it's in alignment with what the banks are looking for. And that's really important. It's really important to be using the business credit cards in alignment with what the banks are wanting. If we want to keep the card stacking process going and build it larger and larger. And the great thing is, that's what I've noticed with you, Steve, is that you started with smaller amounts and you've built up to over, our records show, over 316,000 in funding.
Yeah. Right. Right.
I think a lot of people on the call or on this video might be like, wait, you have $316,000 worth of business credit cards that don't appear on your personal credit report. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it is. And I have to thank you all for what you've done in terms of the training. I also have to thank my parents for teaching me the value of, building and maintaining a good credit profile. Because, them having been real estate investors for so many years, they really hammered that point home to me as a kid growing up. So, not having any late payments on my credit report, not having any non-payments on my credit report is huge. But obviously they gave me the baseline in terms of the do's and don'ts, but Fund&Grow kind of took my knowledge base to another level in terms of understanding the dynamics of how your personal credit is calculated, your credit score, your credit history, and then how that relates to transitioning your personal credit profile and moving over to the business side for your business credit profile. And how do you develop that arm of your business? So that was really, like you said, that was a turning point for me, like when the light bulb went off, when I started really digging into this arena of business credit. And you guys have it pretty dialed in when it comes to your program and your training and your service. You guys have everything pretty dialed in. So I have to thank you one more time for getting me trained up and ready to go.
Thank you. So one of the things that you mentioned is that you use the cards to pay one of your property management company, but I know you have a lot of funding. So I'm imagining that you've done quite a few things with it. Have you done any type of pay-per-click marketing? Have you used the credit cards for anything else within your business?
Sure, yeah. Smaller things like, office furniture or paying cell phone bills, any other business expense I might have that comes up. But the real big reason why, I'm going to be using these credit cards soon actually is because, like I mentioned earlier, we have a pretty sizable flip here in Northridge, California. So it's 5-bed, 4-bath, 2,500 square foot home. So it's pretty sizable and it does need some work. So we're going to be using primarily these cards that you all got us this last go around for the rehab mostly, to pay the contractors, to pay for materials. So I actually recently signed up as a Lowe's Pro member and a Home Depot Pro member. And I actually went into their portal and uploaded those credit cards that you all helped me get. So I'll be getting points from them, points from the credit card, and also utilizing the credit cards at 0% at this time. So I can get that portion of the job done.
And you know what I love about this, Steve, is that someone might be thinking, well, I could do that with cash, or I could do that with, with another loan. But what they're not getting by doing that is you're doing this spending that you have to do anyway. You mentioned things from running your facility to doing a deal. And this is spending that you're going to be doing anyway. You already have this spending plan. But now, by spending on a business credit card, you could get up to 2% cash back. You could get airline miles, all kinds of rewards points for spending that you have to do anyway. Does any other loan give you 2% back?
Nope.
No, they cost you 20%.
Yeah, pretty much. Right.
you know? So
Pretty
the
much.
business credit cards are really absolutely amazing that any type of transaction fee that's incurred through the third party payment services are usually paid back 2 times, 3 times, 4 times by the rewards and by the cash back that comes. I've had many clients tell me that they've made way more in rewards than it ever cost them in the fees to do that. And as you are already aware, you can just use the credit card with the businesses that accept credit card. You don't have to use the third party payment processors for everything. Like every little bit within our business makes a difference. With Fund&Grow, we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars every month, some of it on pay-per-click marketing and a whole variety of things. And when you start to add up all of the cash back and the airline miles, the benefits are really, really massive. Like Dave Ramsey's like, how you expect that you're going to make money, getting 2% cash back from your credit card. And we're like, Dave, we're talking about spending that you're doing anyway. We're not making up spending here. Steve's
Right.
going to be buying these properties anyway. Try to hold him back. Steve's going to be doing these deals anyway. Why not make 2% cash back? And another thing that's really cool that's helped a lot of our clients is using a credit card as a form of asset protection. For example, when you're dealing with a property in a new market like Georgia that you're unsure of and you're having a contractor that you're not aware of, whether it's electrical, plumbing, roof contractor, if you put the payment to them on a credit card and they don't get the job done and the job gets red tagged and you're unable to move forward, and usually they don't really care about our timetables, do they? When it
No.
gets red tagged, it's not like they're like, oh, I'll be right out. No, it's like you're lucky to hear back from them in 30 days. But when you've put that job on a credit card, all you are is one phone call away from calling your credit card, charging back on that transaction, and guess who's going to be calling you the next day? They will be calling
Right.
you the next day. This has happened to me on an electronics camera installation where it was a $35,000 job. I'd already used them to do a $100,000 job before. So you'd think that this other little job would be nothing, and suddenly had a major, it's the craziest thing. If it wasn't for that charge back, I never would have gotten those people. In that case, I actually just got all my 35,000 back. But in another case, I had put up these solar panels and the company literally, they were unable to get it to pass inspection. And so I did the charge back, and immediately the next day they're calling me. And in this case, they came out, they finished the job, it passed inspection, and then the transaction went through. So the point is not that we're trying to not pay the contractor. We just want the contractor to finish the job. And
Right.
so that's where credit cards can come in as a form of asset protection. A lot of people don't think about that when they're paying for it. They're just thinking like, oh, I'm thankful that I have this loan to pay for it. But it's also protection on top of it being a loan.
That's true. That's a very good point. Yeah, with the banks, yeah, and I learned that throughout my banking career. I was a banker at Chase at one point, and I do remember that, yeah, when there was any dispute between our clients, our Chase clients, and a vendor that they were working with, they would come to me and I would help them fill out a dispute form and submit it to our back office, and they would get reimbursed if they were able to prove that their dispute was valid. So that's actually a very good point.
And in this instance, the important thing is as soon as that chargeback comes in, that company is going to be, they realize that they want to keep the money. And in this back and forth here, we know that eventually that business will get the money. We're not going to win. We're not going to be able to keep the money if they did the job. We're just trying to get their attention to come and finish the job. That's the only thing.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I think it's really amazing, Steve, what you've put together, what you've learned from your parents, how you've taken over their business and you're growing that, and how you've created your own investment LLC. What do you see as the future for the investment LLC that you've set up specifically for you and your wife?
Yeah, thank you for that. So I think the future for us holds more fix and flips and also development. I'm looking to getting into development, developing raw land into, either single family homes or, communities. So that's going to be my next step. I don't think I'm 100% ready yet. I do have some things to learn, but I'm eager to learn those things and go to experts who know what they're doing and teach me the right way to do development. So I think that's what the future holds is more fix and flips and development projects.
And do you do any type of partnerships when it comes to doing deals?
Um, I
You
don't really
open
have
to
too
it?
many partners, but I am open to it. I mean, as you know, like partnerships can be a little tricky because it's almost like getting married to somebody, right? And there has to be a good match in terms of the people that partner together, and there has to be very strong contracts in place as well, right? Everything being stipulated as to who's who and what's what. But I am definitely open to it if everything makes sense.
Excellent. Would you be open to us like putting up your number or your website so that if people want to reach out, they could learn more?
Yeah, definitely. They could do that. I'll be quite honest. My website I put together myself, so it's not that good. But
Well, that's
the be
totally okay because
the
one of the
best.
things that we want to show, Steve, is that you have people that are doing $1 million deals like yourself, and you know what? They have a website that's not even that great. But you
Right.
could you do you want to you want to own and control property and make money? Then does it really matter that your website isn't that great?
That's a good
No,
point. Yeah.
you're still doing what you're doing, and
Right. Right.
so
Yeah,
and
but to answer, yeah, I'm sorry, to answer your question, yeah, the best way to get a hold of me would be my email. My
Okay.
email,
So
which
what
you
we'll
will
do is we'll
recognize
pop
me.
your email up on the screen. And so that for anybody who's in your markets, and again, you're operating in Los Angeles and Arizona and in Georgia, correct?
Correct. That's right. But
Awesome.
primarily in California and Arizona, those are the two main states that we're operating in.
Awesome. So, as a final, do you have any advice, strategic advice that you could give as a client of Fund and Grow? Any strategic advice that you could give us to make our services and our programs better for the client experience?
When it comes to somebody who's an entrepreneur or who's in real estate, um, I think probably my best advice is to surround yourself with the best people. You know, be very conscious of the people who take up your time in general, family, friends, business associates, anything, because that's where you're going to absorb the most from in terms of your learning, in terms of your habits, good or bad. So I would say be very, very aware and conscious of who you surround yourself with. And if you want to get to a certain level, surround yourself with people that are way ahead of you and
Yeah.
be humble enough to learn from them.
Steve, do you go to the different real estate meetups and conferences and masterminds?
Yes. Yes. So that's one thing that we're gonna go a little more heavy this year is going to more real estate meetups. So for example, one that we just went to was Jerome Maldonado. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he's got
Yep.
experience in development. We just went to a meetup that he had out here in Pasadena. And we're actually going to be seeing him again in Miami at the end of September. He's got like a 2-day workshop where he's going to talk about how to evaluate from a numbers perspective deals for raw land and if they make sense to develop them. So I'm very interested in that and wanting to learn that aspect of real estate. So yeah, we'll be heading out to Miami, my wife and I, here in late September for that. I guess you could call it a 2-day workshop.
Very, very cool. So yeah, Jerome's actually a affiliate with us as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Teaches folks a variety of different ways of funding, as part of their process. But funding grows a small segment of that. So that's
Perfect. There you go. Yeah. But besides that, yeah, we're going to meetups out here in Southern California where we live, wherever they are. If our schedules work out, we're there. So yeah.
the wonderful thing that I've learned about going to the different masterminds and conferences, like you've probably also seen, is that these relationships are just absolutely invaluable. Fund and Grow
Yes.
was created uh, basically off of just working together with affiliates as an affiliate centric organization. And these relationships have catapulted Fund and Grow to where it is today. And so I couldn't recommend going to the different masterminds more than anything. It's just one of the most
Yeah.
important things. We're part of the Family Mastermind with Matt Andrews, and also the Investor Fuel with Mike Hambright, and a number of other ones that we're part of, and they've been absolutely instrumental. So like Jerome Maldonado, his programs are very similar, except really that's about training, a little bit different than a mastermind of bringing people together. But
Sure.
all of this, all of it is so important and can really catapult us to those next levels. And especially if we stay open to learning, to always
Yes.
learning. It sounds like that's what, from what you were saying, from what that your parents have really instilled in you at an early age, is to be open to learning. And who's out there teaching about these business topics unless you go and involve yourself in it and find those teachers, find those courses, find those programs, and then pick up your ass and take yourself to it.
Yeah, true.
No one's going to do it for you.
Yep, that's right. That's right. 100%. I couldn't agree more with what you just said. Yeah. Yeah. Who you surround yourself with, who you make your mentors, who you allow to teach you, is what's going to determine your success or lack thereof in your life. I totally agree with that.
So do you have any final thoughts for viewers, just kind of like surrounding the idea of just getting up and doing it, getting outside of, because you were working at the, for Citigroup, right? And you were doing a 9 to 5, you were a professional. A lot of people would never leave a job like that. They'd say, you know what, the comfort of this, the stability of this, the retirement of this, I would never leave that. And yet
Right.
you left that and you created your own thing. And that's very inspirational. That takes a leap of faith. It takes belief in yourself and in what it is that you're trying to create. What is a piece of parting advice that you could give for anyone that is looking at that same transition and getting out of whatever it is they're doing into being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, 100%. I think, personally speaking, I believe that being an entrepreneur is a lot deeper than what's on the surface. My personal belief is that being an entrepreneur, if you're the leader of an organization, it's more of a spiritual game that you're playing. So my best advice is to look at, like, if you have a dream, you have a goal that you want to change your situation, you want to transform your life, you want to go from this to that. Don't look at it as what can I get out of it? Who can give me what? Look at it more as how can I serve? Who can I serve? How many people can I serve? So always be in a mindset of service and sacrifice. Sacrifice yourself for the greater good of others. If you step in with that mindset and you hustle and you focus, you will be successful. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I agree. When we lead by giving, then the universe reciprocates, and we're God, if you will, and it showers down upon us. I'm a big believer in the law of attraction, and that's kind of what it sounds like you're talking about here. So
Right. Yeah,
that's a wonderful, beautiful thought for us to leave off on.
that's right.
Thank you so much, Steve, for joining me. I really appreciate you talking about your business, sharing with us what you're doing and what's working, as well as the funding that you got through Fund&Grow and being willing to have a discussion about that. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
It's my absolute pleasure, and it was a pleasure meeting you as well, Ari. I'm glad we had this talk.
Yes, thank you so much for joining me.